These 6 plants are ones I would never advise somebody to use in their landscape. I will share these 6 plants and tell you exactly why you should avoid them also and give you better options instead. This first one uses way too much water, has brittle limbs so they can break off at any time, and invasive, really bad roots. People love this tree. It seems to have a romantic aura about it. It's the weeping willow. I can't think of a reason that you would use a weeping willow anywhere on any project because the problems that it presents are just too substantial. One that I really like, and it grows in a lot of different zones, including Fresno, although sometimes intense heat damages it a little, is a Maytin tree. And it looks very willow-like, kind of a lush, weeping type habit, but it doesn't get huge like a weeping willow, and it doesn't have huge destructive roots, and it doesn't need a lot of water. It's really a neat evergreen tree, and it's beautifully behaved. Another one that reminds me of it, although it has some behavioral problems of its own, but not to the extent of a willow tree, is the pepper tree, Chinus mole. It looks kind of willow-like, but it can have semi-destructive roots, and it can be a little bit unstable. I once had an architect tell me that's the only tree he'll use. Doesn't matter what project he does. The only tree he'll use is pepper tree because that's the only beautiful tree that he really likes. And then its cousin, Chinus terebinthifolius, which is Brazilian pepper, really beautiful tree that has some similarities to the weeping willow, and it's better behaved than the pepper tree. Okay, the next one that I don't want you to plant, or you can plant it if you want, but I'm not going to plant it, and that is a vine called Ipomoea. And the reason people do plant it is it has an absolutely beautiful flower. And I admit that flower is stunning. When people buy plants, they're always eager for them to grow. Well, Ipomoea, or morning glory, grows like crazy. Grow right over the top of the house and make it so you can't open the front door. It is a real aggressive vine that's hard to control. Usually when people have it a year or two, they choose to remove it because it's just so overly aggressive, especially when it's hot in the summer. So there's lots of vines that you can use instead, and they all vary. There's nothing really like Ipomoea, and that's good. Climbing rose, way preferable to Ipomoea, although it'll need some support. Bougainvillea, which needs support and only grows in certain climates without cold weather. Carolina jessamine, pink jasmine. There's another one that's kind of invasive, but it's way better than Ipomoea, is honeysuckle. And there's a lot of different types of honeysuckle, and that'll give you an aggressive vine that grows fast. Another plant that I wouldn't plant, although we see it everywhere, even in our area, hard to control, it can be invasive and a little overpowering. You can start out as a ground cover and then it'll grow right up a wall and take over the whole landscape. And that's English ivy. And that's usually on most people's list of something not to plant. It can be invasive and problematic. Now, instead of English ivy, if you're using it to grow along the ground, ferns will grow in similar circumstances, similar moisture levels and similar exposure levels. And something like wild ginger does well, Ocserum caudatum. There is a cultivar of English ivy. English ivy is Hedera helix. That's much better behaved, doesn't overpower a landscape, more controlled growth, a little more delicate texture, smaller leaves. One of them that's interesting is called Baltica, and Baltica is a cultivar that is not as overpowering as English ivy. I've also sometimes used Hans ivy, which is a smaller one and not quite as strong growing as Hedera helix. So this is one that has toxic berries and berries that cause it to be invasive. It's Nandina domestica, also known as heavenly bamboo. And some people don't think it's so heavenly. So the thing about Nandina domestica is there's a bunch of cultivars, and the cultivars have been bred to avoid the downfalls of straight Nandina domestica. This is one of them that spreads out really in a neat way, looks very elegant and graceful, and has great color many times of the year. This one is called Nandina domestica flirt. Gulfstream is another one, much more delicate texture and only gets 3 or 4 feet tall. Really nice form. You don't have to be pruning it all the time. And again, bred to not produce berries. Blush pink, lots of color, stays small, no berries. Chime. Probably looks the least like Nandina of any of these I'm bringing up. Doesn't need pruning. As far as I can tell, doesn't produce berries. Gets nice colors on it. A little bit wild looking. Even though I would not plant straight Nandina domestica, I would look into all these interesting cultivars. Now, I'm not just going to tell you what not to do, because you should first absolutely subscribe to this channel. It's free. My next one that I would never plant because it's too huge. Eucalyptus globulus has big everything and lots of droppings, and so I would never plant it. Now, you can use other eucalyptus that are pretty well behaved and give you a similar look to Eucalyptus globulus. One I like is Eucalyptus sideroxylon rosea. That's much smaller, better behaved. Another one that's nice, but it gets confused with one that's not nice, is Eucalyptus polyanthemos, which is also called silver dollar eucalyptus. The problem that I've seen is there's several eucalyptus that fit the description silver dollar eucalyptus, and you might think you have the real silver dollar eucalyptus, and it might be instead Eucalyptus cinerea, and cinerea is messy. So my last one that you shouldn't plant, even though people love it because of its spring bloom, I'm talking about Robinia pseudoacacia purple robe. And purple robe locust is really a nasty tree, considered an invasive species with all kinds of problems. Lots of suckering, and it spreads easily, and bad root problems, and it's not stable, it breaks apart. Instead of a purple robe locust, if you want to come even close to that bloom, probably the best choice, even though they're smaller and much better behaved, which is good, is red buds. There's a lot of interesting red buds varieties like Oklahoma, Merlot, Flamethrower. They have a spectacular bloom. And then some of them have even interesting leaves throughout the year. One like Rising Sun, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it's so much better behaved, really doesn't have any of the invasive properties or root problems that Robinia or Locust has. If you want the color and you want a little bigger than the red buds, you could plant one of the bigger crepe myrtles, Muskogee and Tuscarora. Those are Indian tribe crepe myrtles. In our climate, crepe myrtles do very well. Another one that isn't the greatest behaved either, but way better than Robinia and looks a lot like it. It actually is a type of locust called honey locust, and that's Gleditsia triocanthus. That gives you some of the same type of leaf with a yellow tinge on the ends of the leaves. If you found this helpful and you're now rethinking your plant choices, don't miss our other video that Chip and I did about the best and worst mulch for your garden. It's packed with info that'll save your soil and your sanity.